terms of protecting people from infection and severe disease in the autumn and winter, and how long protection lasts. Another important recent development with Comirnaty is the approval of the booster for use in children from 5 to 11 years of age for the original vaccine. This approval is based on clinical data from an ongoing study in around 400 children. The data show immune responses against original SARS-CoV-2 virus and the Omicron BA.1 variant. This recommendation extends the pediatric population that could benefit from a booster, and it gives the member states a possibility to extend boosters to children in need. It will be determined in the coming weeks when the use of adaptive boosters can be extended to this age group. For both Comirnaty and Spikevax, data to support approval for primary series in the ages 6 months to 4-5 years have been submitted. The review could be completed by October. Moving on to other adaptive vaccines, discussions are ongoing with Moderna in preparation for an application for a Spikevax BA.4/5 adaptive bivalent vaccine. We are hoping to start the review at the end of this month. There are also reviews ongoing for 2 vaccines which include other strains of the virus, the Sanofi Pasteur vaccine called Vidprevtin containing the beta strain, and the IPRA vaccine containing both alpha and beta strain. If authorized, these vaccines will further extend the options for revaccination. With the recent approvals, member states have at their disposal a plurality of options to design their vaccination campaigns. In view of the autumn and winter season, we urge European citizens to either get their primary vaccination or to get revaccinated if eligible, following the advice of their national health authority. Jointly with the ECDC, we have provided some considerations on how best to use the adaptive vaccine in the context of vaccination campaigns in this autumn and winter. Individuals that are at risk of progressing to severe disease once infected, such as older adults from 60 years of age, immunocompromised individuals, those with underlying medical conditions, and pregnant women should be prioritized. Healthcare workers should also be considered for additional booster doses with the adaptive vaccine, considering that it may have been a long time since their last dose. As all adaptive vaccines provide with improved immunity against all Omicron variants, timely vaccination is more important than which booster vaccine is administered. Last week, EMA issued a recommendation to convert the conditional marketing authorization for Comirnaty and Spikevax to standard authorizations. The studies conducted by the companies as part of their post-authorization obligations and requirements have provided ample information and reassurance on the vaccine's quality and performance. In addition, extensive data has been generated following the administration of hundreds of millions of doses. This recommendation means that all existing and upcoming adaptive Comirnaty and Spike vaccine, including the recently approved Comirnaty Omicron 1, Omicron 4/5 and Spikevax Omicron 1 adaptive vaccine, will have a standard marketing authorization. As for any medicine, this vaccine will continue to be closely monitored. EMA will continue to assess any new data promptly. Moving on to therapeutics, last week we are recommending extending the use of Evusheld to include the treatment of adults and adolescents with COVID-19 who do not require supplemental oxygen. Evusheld is a medicine with 2 monoclonal antibodies targeting the spike protein of the virus. We are also recommended broadening the use of the antiviral Veklury, which is remdesivir, into pediatric populations. In children of at least 4 weeks of age and weighing at least 3 kilograms with pneumonia who require supplemental oxygen or other non-invasive ventilation at the start of treatment, and children weighing at least 40 kilograms who do not require supplemental oxygen and who are at increased risk of progressing to severe COVID-19. We recognize that since a few months now, many therapies based on monoclonal antibodies are losing their ability to neutralize Omicron subvariants and therefore not used anymore. While the relationship between the antiviral activity determined in the laboratory and the impact it has on clinical efficacy is not fully understood, it would anyway be prudent to prioritize use of antivirals and monoclonals that are maintaining unchanged their antiviral activity against the Omicron variants now in circulation, such as Paxlovid and Veklury. ETF is also progressing the review of sabizabulin for a potential recommendation for use before a formal authorization. However, more information from the sponsor is needed, therefore we cannot say by when this process can be completed. Now turning to monkeypox, based on the data from the ECDC, approximately 20,000 cases and 3 deaths have been reported in the EU, with many countries showing anyway a reduction in the number of cases in the last weeks. Whether this trend will continue is currently not known, but it gives hope that the outbreak can be contained. ETF is continuing its work to support the conduct of adequate clinical studies to determine the effectiveness of the vaccine Imvanex and to establish the impact of the antiviral tecovirimat in the treatment of patients with different levels of disease severity. The joint platform with ECDC for vaccine monitoring will serve as a basis to support those studies that will have the best chances to generate meaningful results that could inform the use of this vaccine. We will also be looking into any new vaccine or antiviral targeting this virus or other pox viruses that could expand our armamentarium. Thank you for your attention. I will stop here and give the floor back to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are now going to take questions. So, dear colleagues from the media, please turn on your camera if you want to ask a question and raise your hand in WebEx. And when I give you the floor, we will unmute your microphone and you can then ask your question. So we are going to start with Politico. Helen, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to ask your response really to a statement that came out from US President Joe Biden late over the weekend. He said that the pandemic is over. And I wanted to get your reaction to this, please, especially in light of countries across Europe relaunching their booster campaigns for the autumn.
Thanks a lot, Helen. This is a question on whether what we say about the statement of Joe Biden regarding the end of the pandemic. And I hand over this question to Stefan Tierstrup, our Chief Medical Officer. Stefan, please.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for that question. I can obviously not answer why President Biden came to that conclusion. What is clear to me, and what should be very clear from Dr. Cavalier's presentation, is that we in Europe still consider the pandemic as ongoing, that it's important that member states prepare for rollout of the vaccines, and especially the adapted vaccines, to prevent further spread of this disease in Europe.
Thank you very much. I do not see any additional hands. Are there more questions from the floor? Okay, Victoria English from MedNew. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Dr. Cavalieri mentioned in passing influenza and the influenza vaccines and said there was some possible parallel as to the way the COVID treatments will develop. I'm wondering whether you could expand on that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cavalieri, please.
Yeah, indeed, the reference here was mainly to the fact that with influenza vaccine every year we extrapolate the safety and efficacy because the changes in the composition of the vaccine in terms of the antigen are really minimal. And this is what we are doing here when we move from an Omicron 1 to an Omicron 5 vaccine. So that's why it was important to make this reference, because this is not something new and it's something that we have been experiencing over the years with the influenza vaccine that, as you know, are very safe vaccines. Whether in the future we will come to the same paradigm also for COVID vaccine at large, I think it's a bit early to say. I believe we need to learn also from each individual platform technology and to really understand if we would be ready to do something similar already now, or we want to see some additional data before moving to this general approach across the board for all the different types of vaccines. The last point that maybe is worth mentioning is that with this virus, we still don't know if we can really already from next year work out this approach with an yearly updates, so a composition that is defined just before the winter season, or at least in the first half of the year, so that vaccine can be manufactured and then deployed at the beginning of the autumn. So we will understand a bit more over this winter what is happening, and at the beginning of next year we will be in a better position to really define what could be the approach from now on.
Thank you very much. We now have a question from Reuters. I give the floor to Ludwig Burger. Ludwig, please.
Many thanks. I'm just curious, the adapted vaccines that you've approved have been approved are for booster use only. I understand. I wonder what the rationale is for somebody who's seeking a primary vaccination, the first shot. Why do these people still have to take the wild type Wuhan version vaccine? And why do they not immediately start the course with the bivalent adapted vaccine? Thanks.
Thank you very much. This question is about the use of boosters or the adapted vaccines only as boosters, and I hand over to Dr. Cavalieri.
Yeah, indeed, this is something that is under discussion right now. We felt was extremely important to start moving quite fast with the approval of the booster doses, but we will be discussing what kind of data could support also the approval of this bivalent vaccine for primary series. I think it's important to stress that the current vaccine using the Wuhan strain are giving quite a good priming, and they also been recommended by the WHO as still the best choice for priming, while this adaptive vaccine will be used for booster. But we fully understand that it will be important to come up as soon as possible with a position on the potential use of these bivalent vaccines also for primary series, and we are discussing with the companies what kind of evidence could be supporting such a recommendation.
Thank you very much. I now take a question from the chat from Sylvie Bournouf from APM. She is asking, did I understand correctly that you recommend using any kind of adapted booster, and that what is more important is a timely injection? That's also a question for you, Dr. Cavalieri.
Yeah, it's your understanding is absolutely correct. We don't think it's so straightforward to see, based on all the immunogenicity data that we have at hand now, whether there will be differences in the level of protection that could be conferred by these different adaptive vaccines. At the moment, of course, Omicron 5 is circulating, but we don't know what will come next, and that's also complicate things a little bit further. So based on the data we have seen, also the Omicron 1 vaccines are quite good at neutralizing the subvariant Omicron 5, and therefore at this point in time we think that all these adaptive vaccines are a good option. What is really important is that people get them and get revaccinated, because that will make a difference more than whether it's a BA1 or a BA5 vaccine.
Thank you very much. I do not see any more hands, any more questions, so a last chance. I see Helen, you have your hand up again. Over to you.
Hi, thank you. Do you have any latest data on the uptake so far of the second booster since campaigns started in recent weeks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's not really a question that EMA can answer, but I can hand over to Dr. Steffen Tierstrup, who might be able to give you some more information. Over to you, Steffen.
As just told, we don't have exact statistics here. We know that these vaccines has become available in member states. We know that Portugal started rollout to the very elderly population a couple of weeks ago, so early September. We know that all other member states, I can speak from Denmark, where I originate from, they started rollout this week, again to the most vulnerable and elderly population. So many member states are already starting offering these vaccines, especially to the elderly part of the population as recommended. But we don't have a detailed percentage of rollout percentage, and for that matter also the exact uptake. Talking about uptake, I must say we've seen polls in the Netherlands and Hungary pointing to large degree of hesitancy among the general population for having these boosters, which I find very concerning.
Thank you very much. So your last chance to ask a question. If there's no one else with a question, I would like to close today's press briefing. Thank you very much for your attendance, and also thank you very much to our colleagues, my colleagues who responded to your questions today. If you have any additional question, please do not hesitate to contact the press office. So thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you.